Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics on the Hindus YouTube channel. Now, this is a show where, as you know, we go behind the headlines of news being done in domestic politics. This week, two big political dynasties saw a falling out from within. It was a long time in coming. The BRS, the Bharata Rashtra Samiti's K. Chandrasekhar Rao family in Telangana and the RJD's Yadav family in Bihar. The dynamics behind this falling out and how is it germane to their political parties and the electorate. Basically, dynasty politics and its discontents will be the subject of this episode of Talking Politics. It was in his novel Anna Karenina that Leo Tolstoy had said, "All happy families are alike, each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." While this may be true with regard to domestic happiness or strife, in the political field, each unhappy family, in fact, also is alike and has one feature in common, alike in its reason for unhappiness, the quest for power and the inheritance of political legacy. In Telangana, the K. Chandrasekhar Rao family's troubles came out into the light when a letter by KCR's daughter, MLC K. Kavita, to him got leaked. In her letter, she had written, addressed to her father KCR, in early May. This was after the BRS plenary in Hanamkonda. She questioned his relative silence on the BJP. In her letter, she said that he only spoke for 2 minutes on a party challenging the BRS on its turf and in the opposition space, and more importantly, whose government at the centre had arrested Kavita in the alleged Delhi excise scam last year. More politically, she also wrote that KCR did not speak on pressing issues such as the Waqf Amendment Act 2025, to which the Muslim community has its own reservations, and reservations for backward classes and subcategorizations within the scheduled caste category. Now, her brother, former minister in the Telangana government, KT Ramarao, the Kalvakuntala Taraka Ramarao, he's better known as KTR, played down the significance of the letter, stating that there was nothing wrong in writing a letter to one's own father. On the whole, however, this showed up the fact that Kavita, for long the national face of the BRS, in fact, I have myself known her through the period of the Telangana separate state movement, and also as an MP in Delhi. And she had been actually the most vocal face of the BRS's, then called, of course, TRS, its legislature party in the Lok Sabha, till she lost to D. Aravind of the BJP in the 2019 polls. She's now an MLC in the Telangana Legislative Council. So she apparently is pushing back against apprehensions of being sidelined within the party, where KTR has more control over the party organization. On Tuesday, she announced the Singareni Jagruti as an affiliate of the Telangana Jagruti, which she heads. The new outfit is said to have been formed to address issues concerning Singareni employees and workers, functioning more as a social institution than a traditional trade union. There is speculation that she may float a new outfit, but at the time of taping this episode, which is the Thursday, nothing has come out officially about this. Now, while this is playing out in Telangana, another dynastic kerfuffle has arisen in Patna, in Bihar, where the RJD president Lalu Prasad Yadav expelled his elder son and MLA Tej Pratap Yadav from the party and disowned him personally. This, he said, he was doing for ethical reasons after media and social media posts pointing to his having an alleged relationship with the young lady Anushka Yadav surfaced. Tej Pratap is undergoing a long and very complicated divorce case, a heavily contested divorce case, and the media posts said that his relationship had been on for 12 years, likely predating his arranged marriage to Aishwarya, daughter of politician Chandrika Rai. While the social media post was deleted soon after, the damage had been done. Aishwarya saw this as a validation of her contention that the marriage had been entered into in bad faith and only for political reasons, and that the expulsion and disowning of Tej Pratap Yadav by his family was a way for the family to make sure that reputational loss did not attach itself to the party and its prospects going into the assembly polls in Bihar scheduled later this year. More importantly, it also shone a light on the fact that Lalu Prasad Yadav's political legacy is incontrovertibly in the hands of his second son, Tejashwi Yadav, alone, cutting his elder brother completely out of the picture. Now, as dynastic politics goes, this is par for the course. Now, fight over family legacies have happened in other parties as well. For example, in the Samajwadi Party, the Nationalist Congress Party and the Shiv Sena. While it is not a unique feature of Indian politics, it is particularly prevalent here and in the South Asian subcontinent. Now, there are many theories as to why dynastic politics is such a feature here. If one goes to through classical sociological theories on the origins of power and authority, a book by German sociologist Max Weber titled Power and Authority looks at three different types of authority: rational, that accrues from bureaucratic systemic perpetuation; traditional, that comes from family or community held authority; and charismatic, which accrues from an individual's own charisma and ability to secure the loyalty of a political base. Now, when it comes to India and dynasties, one can say that this is a mixture of traditional and charismatic, with a leader gaining through charisma and passing on the power to his legatee as a traditional legacy. This has also become because meaningful internal polls for leadership within most political parties in India do not exist. Leaders, when they gain power, surround themselves with loyalists. They privilege loyalty over merit and family members who they feel they can trust to hold power in proxy. Many parties are not cadre-based. They largely have community bases where family ties are validated as legitimate forms of leadership. Now, do forces within Indian society somehow aid this perpetuation of dynasty? Are we inclined, as in the business world, to look at political power as something to be held within families? India and other South Asian nations have shown a predilection for dynastic politics. Now, and this is within electoral setups. Some say that these states were post-colonial ones, like we had colonization and imperial rule, and as the imperial elite departed, a new elite took their place, some from the leadership of the anti-colonial struggles like the Gandhi family, and others like landed gentry, regionally strong, they also came to the fore. Now, books to read in this context, which will give you a bit of an idea in detail about how elites are created and perpetuated. You should be reading C. Wright Mills's book, The Power Elite, and in the Indian context, Dr. Sanjaya Baru's India's Power Elite, Caste, Class and Cultural Revolution. I have always thought of elitism and dynastic politics as a yes and no, and its prevalence in India as a yes and no, has a yes and no answer to that. Now, disruptors and new leaders can always emerge to break family oligarchies, as in the case of our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who comes from a non-political background, former Prime Ministers Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Morarji Desai, Deve Gowda and several others. But the leg up that a family legacy gives you in a hugely competitive space like politics is as yet unbeatable. One starts out with an almost unassailable advantage in the race of political legacy, resources and networks. One has to be exceptional, as in the case of Prime Minister Modi and the others that I mentioned, to break the stranglehold of this kind of an oligarchy. Within this dynastic succession, if there are more than one claimant, we get what we are seeing now and have seen before, a war for a claim on the political legacy. In the case of the BRS, the gender angle also gets in the way. Should a son automatically be the legatee, or should the daughter also be given her chance to prove herself? Whenever such a tug of war happens, it is a fascinating situation to observe of how power is devolved, won and validated. And every time it teaches us something new about our complex country and its raucous, boisterous democracy. I hope that this has helped contextualize not just the situation in the BRS and the RJD, but the fairly prevalent dilemmas of dynastic succession within electoral democracy. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching.